We've been trying to get to some new, different, and better experience of life for quite some time. I think for the past 5 years since 2020. However, it's been a little bit hard to do. That's because we haven't known what needed to end, how we needed to end it, what needed to begin, and what was the best way to do so. That has left us for many years quite confused and stuck. Well, as of a few months ago, April of this year, 2025, we finally started to realize that the best way to move into this new, different, and better experience of life is to drastically change our behaviors and the way we approach our life, and to drastically change those to more fully honor our emotions and what we're feeling and what lights us up and inspires us here and is simpler and easier, which is what I think our emotions really want. It's taken us a while to also kind of sustain these new behaviors and to get used to them. But very recently, as of I think 2 weeks ago, we finally started to get these new behaviors and honor our emotions so much more than we ever have before. As a result, at this full moon in Capricorn, of which this video is for, we are finally starting to see our lives turn around in this new, different, and better direction in a way that is more publicly, visibly seen and more tangible. Not only that, but we're also beginning to see a lot more new ideas about our life and our future and what we could do open up to us as well that feel a bit more attainable here, which is wonderful. But even though there's a lot of new ideas and energy and excitement here, because it's so different, it's a little bit overwhelming for us at this time, and we may not know which of these ideas are the best to pursue or how exactly to pursue them in the right way. As a result, what we are also learning at this full moon in Capricorn here is to slow down before embarking on some of these new ideas to better structure, stabilize, and secure the current place, newfound good place that we just found ourselves in here as well, to make sure that's running smoothly and to get more used to that, because structuring this newfound experience and making sure it's running more smoothly is going to help us, not quite yet, but very soon, act on these new ideas that we're now getting in a way that's going to be much quicker and much easier as well. Hi, I'm your astrologer, Brittany of Ethereal Astrology, helping you to see the bigger story of your life. Today, you're watching your astrology horoscope for the full moon in the sign of Capricorn, which occurs on Thursday, July 10th, 2025 at 4:36 p.m. Eastern Time or 1:36 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, let's go ahead and let's hop right into it. In order to get started, what I like to do first is to place on the chart what it is that I'm going to be talking about in this video so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. We've got the sun here in Cancer, making an exact opposition over here to the moon in Capricorn, or the moon making an opposition here to the sun at 18 degrees. Okay, when the moon opposes the sun, just like it's doing here, this is what is considered a full moon. And of course, it's in Capricorn because that's the sign in particular that the moon is in at this time. Okay, what are full moons all about? Now, to give you just a bigger general idea of what this full moon is. Well, full moons are halfway through the lunar cycle or the lunar month. Because of that, they tend to be about really stepping into things that we've been working on maybe since the new moon or prior to that point, and not only stepping into things that we've been working towards for quite some time, but also to completing them and ending them, because it's starting the ending half, the last half of the lunar cycle as well. So it's a lot about stepping into things here and ending or releasing them here too. Not only that, but I should also note as well that full moons are when the moon is the brightest in the sky here as well. And because of that, that to me is a symbol of illumination. There can be a lot of insights or illuminations that comes at full moon, where it brings things to light that maybe we could not see before that now are becoming more visibly seen. Not only that, but other things too about the full moon is that that is a function of an opposition. Here, oppositions are a lot about decisions, right? Because it's hard to do two opposite things at once, which can sometimes bring tension. That's why maybe full moons get a bad rap here, can bring some tension. But they are a lot about decisions here in particular. And because it's these decisions that we need to make that are going to help us step into things we've been working towards and get the insights that we need and release those things so that we can move on to other stuff here. Okay, what is it now that we are stepping into, maybe releasing, trying to get insights on and make decisions about? Well, that's going to be Capricorn. here, because that is the sign that this full moon is in. What is Capricorn here about? Well, I think the first thing that I want to note that to me is especially relevant for this full moon is that Capricorn is at the highest part of the chart right here. Okay, the highest part of the chart also rules the noontime hour. Okay, is the chart that's most publicly seen, most visible. That's why a lot of times we associate Capricorn with our place in the world, our status, our career, because it is up here so visibly seen. So what that and not only that, maybe I should note that Capricorn is also an earth sign here as well, which makes things more tangible. So one of the things that this means to me is that at this full moon in Capricorn, we are stepping into something that's more publicly seen or visibly seen in a more tangible, earthy, realistic type of way than maybe it was before, and where that's becoming more illuminated, more bright here too. So we've got two symbols indicating seen: full moon, Capricorn, something becoming more publicly and visibly seen. And not only that, but I also want to note here as well that Capricorn too tends to also be a little bit more of a serious sign, being associated with Saturn, and also too, again, with our career and our life direction. Usually our career and our life direction is something that we're more serious about the direction that it's going in here, of that sort as well. So not only at this full moon in Capricorn do I think we're, starting to step into something that's more publicly and visibly seen and getting illumination of that, and maybe even making decisions about that, but we're also too stepping into, a more serious energy here, where we're trying to become more serious, I think, about these things that are now more publicly seen here as well, and how we work with those and in what direction they're going to take our life here. Not only that, but I should also note too that Capricorn as well, being Saturn ruled, is also a sign that has to do with decisions as well, in addition to the full moon, and commitments, in particular, committing to something here as well. So that's another theme that's coming up, starting to see something more publicly seen, more visible, getting illuminated to that, and being more serious about this stuff we're more publicly seeing, where it's going to go, how it's going to bring our life, and trying to commit to it more or make better decisions about it and where it's going. Not only that, but I also want to note as well that Capricorn is an earth sign. Earth signs tend to be just a bit more practical when they do make decisions, when they do make commitments, when they do assess things here, a bit more practical, a bit more realistic about what will actually work, what won't work here, and about what needs to happen maybe first, second, and third, might even prioritize things here a little bit more as well. So that's another theme at this full moon in Capricorn. Okay, starting to see something being more publicly and visibly seen here, and we're trying to make decisions about that and what to do next, and we're being more serious and more practical in order to do that, and in order to commit to these things we're starting to see. Not only that, but Capricorn too, being again an earth sign and correlated to Saturn, also to me tends to do with structures and boundaries here as well, which are more tangible too. So I think that that's another thing that we're trying to figure out, is how we can put better structures and boundaries into this thing that's starting to become more visible here, that's going on, or to work with it better in a way that's maybe going to be more long lasting, right? That's another thing that Capricorn cares about as well, too, in order to kind of work things together in the way that it is that we need. Okay, not only that, but I also want to note too as well that Capricorn also does tend to be a little bit of a slower sign here too, tends to be a slower sign because it is earth signs. Okay, earth signs just tend to be a little slower because it's hard to deal with the physical reality. There's limitations of physical reality that other things maybe don't have the limitations of here. And because it's ruled by Saturn, Saturn isn't a super fast moving planet, but it's not a super slow one either. It has a little bit of a longer orbit. Maybe I'll say that. It has a little bit of a longer orbit here than some of the personal planets. That means it takes time. So this can also be a little bit of a slower energy here that's coming into being here as well, as we do this stuff, right? Because sometimes being serious, being practical, putting structures and boundaries in also takes time. Not only that, but I think the last thing that I want to note as well is that Capricorn is a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs do tend to start new things or turn things in a different direction here as well. So I think that's another thing here. We're starting to see our life turn in a different direction, and we're trying to figure out how to better structure and manage that and bring all of that together in a more practical way so that we can commit to it, it can last the test of time and all of that here as well. So I think that's what I want to say now in terms of the big themes of this full moon in Capricorn. Maybe just to repeat that before I move on to another section here, is that what's going on at this full moon in Capricorn is that we're starting to step into something in our lives that's becoming more visibly seen and more tangibly seen, that I think is going to change the direction of our lives here. And we're trying to be more serious about this thing that's becoming more tangibly and visibly seen so that we can better commit to it, have it give us a better life direction here, and be more practical about it, and help it put our lives in the best direction, which may require us to put more structures and boundaries in place and to take a little bit of time in order to figure that out. Okay, now what I like to do next here is, before moving forward, is to actually go backwards in time for a minute before getting more into the details of this full moon in Capricorn, right? I'm going to go through the aspects, but before I do that, I'm going to go backwards in time before going forward. The reason why I'm going to go back in time is because I believe that what happened is because there's a full moon in Capricorn. Maybe I'll start there. There's a full moon in Capricorn every single year. That's not unique. But what is unique to this full moon in Capricorn are the alignments that happen before it or that are happening around it. That to me is really what makes the most difference here as time goes on, and is going to help me to actually be more detailed in my horoscope later on. So I'm going to do that. If you're not interested in this portion, totally fine, not a big deal. Just skip through it. I've got the timestamps down below in the description box for you so you can do that. But I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. Where I want to start is actually going to be back to 2020, because there's something very significant going on then that was also rare. And that was Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn coming into a conjunction towards the middle to late degrees of Capricorn, and the South Node as well, which is, funny enough, about where this full moon in Capricorn is right now. Okay, I want to start there in that alignment because that is a bit of a rare and uncomfortable alignment that happened in 2020. It's rare because Saturn and Pluto only come conjunct about every 35 years, roughly, and not always in the same sign. Not only is it rare because of that, but also too because Jupiter and the South Node are not always there either. When Saturn and Pluto come conjunct, that makes it even more rare. Not only that, but this is a bit difficult because Saturn and Pluto tend to be a little bit more of a challenge, being on their way towards the outer planets. And Jupiter was in Capricorn, a sign it doesn't like to be in, and the South Node as well tends to indicate things that are keeping us stuck and holding us back. So this to me was a very rare challenge. What was that rare challenge in 2020 that I think we're still kind of working with today? Well, Saturn and Capricorn, where all these things are, can indicate us just feeling stuck in our lives and not really where we want to be. That I think could have either gone on for 35 years, because that's how long it takes this alignment to take place, where we either felt stuck for 35 years and didn't like our lives, or we liked our lives at one point, but over the course of the past 35 years started to just feel stuck, like we had outgrown that experience. Not only that, but Pluto can indicate change, especially with Jupiter there, a huge change, a big change that needed to be made as a result to end this time of our life that we did not like and move forward. However, again, this is a difficult alignment. So it's not just like a really easy, simple fix. This was a very big change that needed to be made, that may have required a lot of difficult endings. Pluto brings endings, especially if these things had gone on for decades here. That was hard, that we then started to do. So that's what to me happened in April of 2020. Something's not right in my life, hasn't been for a while. Either I hadn't liked it or I've simply outgrown it. Now I need to do the hard work of making these long endings, hard endings, changes out of things in my life that had been a part of it for a long time. That was difficult. That then leads me now to the next alignment. I'm going to fast forward here to this year, that I want to talk about, which is going to be April of this year of 2025. Okay. When we had a new moon solar eclipse here somewhere in the sign of Aries. I want to fast forward to that time because, again, we had a solar eclipse in Aries, which is very significant. Solar eclipses in themselves are significant. Also, too, because Aries season is the first sign of the astrological new year, okay, which is going to start a new cycle of which we're currently still on, and to just shorten this section. So I'm now going to start here. What is that about? A new moon solar eclipse. New moons are about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts. Solar eclipses superpower that and make that super big. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, also about new beginnings here as well. So a very significant new beginning and fresh start that we're trying to get into. Aries as well is a sign about our identity and about our actions and our behaviors. So specifically a new beginning with our actions and our behaviors and our identity. And I think to do those in ways that are more Aries. Aries to me is a fire sign. It's more passionate, which I think is an emotion. Passion is an emotion. Here, more passionate, more in tune with our emotions, especially more of the happy, exciting ones here. And that's also simpler and easier because Aries don't like to waste time doing all this other stuff and making things complicated. Okay, so in a way that's simpler and easier here. That's what we tried to do. Not only that, but I think around April of this year, we also begin to realize that it's this different action and it's this different behaviors and identity that honors our emotions that's going to get us out of this mess since 2020 and get us finally into this different and better experience of life we've been trying to change our lives to be. Hey, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which is going to be the next new moon. Now I'm going to go through the new moons, which happened in Taurus about a month later, May now of this year, 2025. New moons are about new beginnings. Taurus is a lot about sustaining something that's already been started. And I think started in Aries season, which we were just talking about, which came before it, which are these new behaviors that are more in tune with our emotions, simpler and easier. So it was us trying to really sustain those and get used to those. Not only that, but I also need to note that Taurus is fixed earth, which also tends to be a slower sign as well. So we might have either had to slow down in order to adapt these new behaviors to make sure we're really getting them right. Or if not slow down to adapt these new behaviors, then it may have just felt slow. These new behaviors may have just felt slow because they're different from what we're used to and because we're making life simpler and easier. And when life's simpler and easier, you're not doing as much as you once were doing and you have more downtime. So it could have been either or here that was going on. Then that leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which was that next new moon a month later here in Gemini in June, roughly somewhere around there in June. Okay, what was that about? New moons again are about new beginnings. Gemini, being a mutable sign, is a lot about adapting to things, getting more used to them here in a lot of ways. It's also an air sign about our mindset. So it's also too about adapting our mind, changing our mind, adjusting our mindset, and to what happened in Aries season, right? Because Aries is the beginning of the astrological year, to these new behaviors that are more in tune with our emotions. So not only this year have we gotten these new behaviors that are finally going to get us into a new, different, and better experience of life and try to sustain those, which may have felt slow for various reasons, but we also started to change our mindset, to mentally get on board with these new behaviors and to adapt even more to them here. That's going on. That then leads me now to the next new moon I want to talk about a month later in Cancer, which I think was also in June of this year, somewhere right around there. What is that about? New moons, again, are new beginnings. Cancer is a lot about grounding things, a strong foundation in things here within ourselves, getting stronger in something to give it more roots. Not only that, but Cancer is about our emotions, which is a whole part of the new approach to life we were trying to get, right? Is to tune more into our emotions here. So what I think happened at this new moon in Cancer, which was just 2 weeks ago, is that this new approach to life, these new actions that are more in tune with our emotions, simpler and easier here, finally started to take root and have a stronger foundation in a more deep and enduring way, and where we really started to believe, especially because that new moon was conjunct Jupiter, believe more in this different approach and that it's going to help us or work for us or be just what's needed in order for us to move forward. Because we did that, we finally got this new approach and are believing in it and are more firmly planted in this new actions that are honoring our emotions and are simpler and easier. We now, at this full moon in Capricorn, July here, of which this video is for, are starting to finally see our lives change in a very public, visible, tangible way that I think connects back to 2020, that I think we wanted since 2020. That's now finally arriving. We're now finally seeing our lives change here to be different since then in a more real way, and are trying to be more serious now about this new experience so that we can lock it in here, have it last the test of time, and make the best decisions that we need in order to do that, in order to structure it, even if it means we need to take it still a little bit slower over the course of the next few weeks while that happens. Okay. So do you see what's going on here? Maybe to repeat that one last time before we move on. We've been trying to get to a new, different, and better experience of life since 2020. It's been hard to do for a lot of reasons, okay? But as of this year, we finally started to figure it out, how exactly to finally make that leap into this new and better experience. And what we figured out earlier this year is that the way to make the leap into the new and better experience is to adopt new behaviors that are more in tune with our emotions, because I don't think we were doing that before, and simpler and easier. And we spent the time to sustain it, to change our mindset, to adapt to it, and to get more fully grounded and rooted in these new behaviors, which we have now done. And because of that, magic is happening. Magic is happening, and we're starting to see things change to get into this new and better experience we've been trying to get to since 2020, and are trying to figure out how best to work with that so that we can lock it in and it gives us the best result, even if we need to go slower momentarily. And that's it. Because that's it, I'm now going to move forward here to talk more about the specifics that are happening, aspects that are happening with this full moon, and that are also happening around this full moon as well. To do that, I'm just going to place the full moon one more time on the chart, especially for those of you who did not watch that last section. Here's the full moon, again, in Capricorn. And I think that a big part of this is something's becoming more visibly seen. And I believe what's becoming more visibly seen in a more tangible way is a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to for quite some time. Okay, what do I want to take a look at next? Well, before I go into the specific of this full moon itself, I'm going to back out to some other alignments just happening around it. I'm going to back out to some other alignments happening around it because I think that they're very significant as well, and going to better help me explain things to you too, to get a more clear picture of what's happening. And what I want to look at first actually is going to be Uranus here, because Uranus very recently, in the days right before this full moon in Capricorn, moved here into the sign of Gemini. Okay, what is this about? I consider this a fine thing, to be honest, at least for the time being. I consider it a fine thing here because Uranus is now out of the sign of Taurus, a sign it did not like to be in and didn't function that well in, and is now in the sign of Gemini. It doesn't love Gemini, but doesn't hate it either. It's just neutral here, and that to me is a win. So I want to consider this more of a positive thing. Not only do I want to consider this more of a positive thing, but I also want to consider this too a very, very significant thing as well. A very significant thing because Uranus is an outer planet, therefore meaning it moves more slowly through each of the signs and does not change signs that often. It takes Uranus about 7 years to move through a sign, and even longer to move through the entire zodiac, right? Because there's 12 signs, 7 times 12 here. Okay, and the last time that Uranus was in the sign of Gemini was in the 1940s. So it's been a while since Uranus has been here in the sign of Gemini, which to me makes it significant. Not only does that make it significant, but one other thing makes it very significant to me as well is that Uranus is the last of the outer moving planets to change signs this year, in a year in which a lot of outer planets are changing signs, right? We had Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter change signs this year, right? And Uranus is the last one to do it out of all of them, when we already don't have Saturn and Neptune change signs in 1 year. That's also kind of unique in and of itself. So that to me makes this very significant here, and this year very significant, way more than the past 4 or 5 years, right? 2020 was significant, 2025, huge, now huge. Okay, so very big deal that's going on, right? And the other years in between were their own thing, just trying to get through stuff. Okay, but this is very significant, and I think in a positive way. What is the significant, more positive thing that's going on here? Well, Uranus can indicate the sudden and the unexpected. It can also indicate kind of feeling more free or liberated or authentic here. Not only that, it's in Gemini. Gemini is a mutable sign. Mutable signs are more flexible, especially compared to Taurus, where Uranus just was, which is fixed earth, which can feel kind of heavy. So this is a lighter feeling, a more flexible feeling here. Not only that, but Gemini too can be more playful of a sign, being symbolized by 2 young twin boys. So there's some kind of playful, liberating, kind of lighter energy about it that's coming suddenly and unexpectedly here to kind of get us into a different experience of life very significantly. Not only that, but Gemini too is a lot about our mindset, being a Mercury ruled sign, how we think, and about our ideas as well, thoughts and ideas. So this can also indicate a lot of unique or different ideas opening up to us about our life and what we could do next and how we could handle it that maybe we also didn't have before. That again is like a breath of fresh air, the air sign, flexible, I think exciting, playful going on here that can be, I think, a good thing here that's happening. So I think maybe that's the first, well, yeah, I think that's what I want to say here. Maybe another thought before I move on really quickly is that Uranus is also fairly conjunct Venus while this is happening. As you can see it, I've kind of written over the degrees. Let's see what the degree is here. Yeah, within 6 degrees. So it's also close to Venus, and it's making a trine as well over here to Pluto in Aquarius. I also want to consider those things helpful too. I want to consider those things helpful because Venus is typically a benefic planet, being a personal planet here, known for beauty and ease and all of that. And a trine can be helpful too, especially if some of the other things involved are positive. So I want to see this in a more of a positive way. Venus is about being open to receive things here as well. And to feel more comfortable, especially now in Gemini with the ideas. So not only is this just bringing a lot of new ideas that we might be having here about our life that are more exciting and authentic to us, to put our life in a different direction, that are more fun and like a breath of fresh air, but it's us actually being open to receive these ideas for a change. And we feel more comfortable with these ideas, which is very nice. It's also connecting with Pluto here in Aquarius. Pluto can bring things to a more intense degree. So it can bring a lot of things here. It's in Aquarius, a lot of ideas. Aquarius too also has to do with just feeling more free and liberated. And a trine can indicate things happening very quickly here too. So what this means to me, I guess now to bring that together with the full moon in Capricorn, is that what is now happening at this time is that we're now starting to see a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to for quite some time, more publicly, visibly, and tangibly manifest in our lives, especially as a result of us adopting new behaviors over the course of the past few weeks that are more in touch with our emotions here. And that is opening up a whole new world of thoughts, of ideas, maybe even of feelings, where we're thinking new things about our life, or just see a lot more opportunities and possibilities for our life that feel more exciting, that feel more authentic to us, and are going to be much better for us here, that we're more open to receive, right? Which may have happened unexpectedly and very, very quickly. And there may be a lot of them that you're downloading. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be here, where Mars is coming into a conjunction with the South Node in Virgo. Now, it's not there yet. It's going to need a few more days, but it's starting to get close. So I want to talk about this. Now, this to me is a little bit of a challenge here compared to the others. This to me is a little bit of a challenge because we've got the South Node involved, and the South Node tends to be difficult because it indicates things that we're stuck in because we just feel more comfortable doing them, but that if we continue to do are going to hold us back here, that we really need to release or work around in some sort of way. So this to me is a bit hard, especially with Mars too. Sometimes Mars can be considered a malefic planet that can kind of agitate the situation here as well. What is some of the difficulty here that might be going on? Well, Mars, again, will push things. We'll kind of push things a little far here. And it's in Virgo. Virgo is a Mercury-ruled sign, just like Gemini, where Uranus just entered. So this is a lot of mental energy, especially now with the Aquarius here as well, with the trine that Uranus was making to Pluto. So there is a lot of mental energy here happening that can be a little too much sometimes with Mars pushing it. Too much mental energy that's keeping us stuck. South Node. Not only that, but Virgo is Earth Mercury, and Earth Mercury tends to be also a little bit more practical and a little more strategic and a little bit more detailed about what we're doing, how we're doing it, what's the right way to doing it, and if what we're going to do is going to work here as well. That again is also keeping us a little bit stuck here in the South Node, or stuck in general here, because we're maybe overthinking some of these ideas, and are too much in the head about what idea to pursue, how to pursue it, what's the best idea, what's the right one here, that can be a bit challenging. Not only that, but Virgo can also indicate just like hard work, because Virgo has to do with our routines, things we do day in and day out, which when the South Node is there, can really bog you down. So this can also be us still feeling like if we are to do any of these unexpected, beautiful ideas that are coming into our awareness, that we have to kind of do them in more like of a routine, hardworking kind of way here as well. That's also kind of frustrating to us here as well. That's going on, and a little agitating. Mars can kind of push at you a little bit and make you feel a little agitated here, maybe at yourself, maybe at other people, not necessarily because of anything other people are doing. I think other people with Venus here are good, helping us get new ideas and feel excited about our lives. But I think agitated because we've got a lot of new ideas and we don't know which ones to pursue or how to pursue them, or are making them harder than they need to be here, making us feel just stuck or like we're not really moving forward and working with these ideas. Okay. So do you see now, to bring that together before I add another layer, at this full moon in Capricorn, we're finally starting to see a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to since 2020 manifest more publicly, more tangibly, in a way that's more visibly seen, especially as a result of adopting new behaviors the past few months that are more in tune with our emotions here, which is very good, opening up a whole new world to us here, a whole new world of ideas, of thoughts, of things we could do in our life that are more authentic, more exciting, more playful, more flexible, more in tune with ourselves, which is great here, that we're really open to receive and I think are enjoying exploring. But even though we've got new and better experiences downloading, a lot of ideas incoming here, I think that we're starting to get a little too in the head or feeling overwhelmed by all these ideas, maybe are overthinking them or being too practical about them or about how to proceed with them and in what way and what ideas to pursue. That is just making us feel really frustrated and stuck because we're in a great experience, but we're still struggling to kind of move it forward. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be here where Mercury is. Mercury is currently in pre-retrograde shadow here in the sign of Leo. That I want to talk about, especially keeping in mind that Neptune just recently went retrograde as well. But let's focus on Mercury in particular. What does it mean when a planet's in pre-retrograde shadow? It means that the planet is not retrograde yet, okay? That will happen soon. But it means that the planet is now slowing down, getting ready to go retrograde, and that when it does go retrograde, it's going to come back here to these same degrees here that it's now going over. Okay, when this happens, when we get a planet in pre-retrograde shadow, what it does is it starts to introduce all of the themes that are going to come up during the actual retrograde here to kind of start to bring those to our conscious mind. Now, they're not necessarily conscious yet. Okay, Mercury's actually going to need to start to go retrograde for that. But in the subconscious, the themes that we're going to have to work out are brewing, and the themes that we're going to need to rework, right? Because Mercury's about to go retrograde. Retrograde means it appears to be moving backwards in the sky. So there's a re-evaluating or a readjusting of things. So this can bring up something in our lives that we're starting to realize in our subconscious, maybe not consciously yet, and our subconscious is not quite working yet, that we're going to need to reevaluate soon. And I think slow down to do, right? Because it's a symbol of not moving forward. We're going to have to go backwards, slow down to go backwards to do before we can move forward again. What is it that is not quite right here that we are going to need to slow down to work through that we're maybe not consciously aware of yet? Well, Mercury and Leo. Mercury is also correlates to both Virgo and Gemini, which we've got a lot of things going on now that we just talked about here, which is the mind here, the thoughts, the ideas. So this is a thing with the thoughts and the ideas about which ones to pursue, about how to pursue them, that's just not there yet, or that we haven't refined yet, or that we still don't know yet here about what to do next and how. Not only that, but Mercury to me can also in some ways be about our physical environment because it does correlate to Virgo and Earth sign, which is more tangible. So yeah, this can also be too, not only there's some uncertainty that's starting to brew here about which ideas to pursue, but also how to pursue them and how to tangibly adjust, our life in order to do these things, or in order to enact these things, these new ideas in a more tangible way here as well. Okay, so can indicate some challenges there. Why is there something not right about that? Why are we still not ready to act on these new wonderful ideas that are opening up and put them into action and move forward on them? Well, I think part of that is the Leo here that's going on, right? Because that's why the Mercury's going retrograde in Leo here, is because there's something about that we haven't fully worked out yet. Leo is in some ways about our identity, since it's correlated to the sun, which is the core of our being. So I think that there's something about this new experience of life that we're just now in with this full moon in Capricorn that doesn't quite feel a part of our identity yet. Right? Because it's so new, like it just started happening. And for the past 5 years, it's been a mess, So I think there's a part of us that's like, oh my gosh, so many cool new ideas, but they don't feel like me yet. They don't feel like a part of my identity yet. They still feel like someone else, or like a different version of me in another dimension. There's still like this feeling of like, it just doesn't quite feel like me yet. Not only that, but Leo is a lot about happiness too, and joy and pleasure. And I think we're still, not having as much fun as we need to be having when it comes to these new ideas, or letting ourselves have fun, or we're not tapping into our heart as much as we need to here about these ideas either. Maybe that's also kind of keeping us stuck as well, because when we don't identify with this new experience of life, and when we don't feel it in our heart and enjoy it, we could push it away, or we could get confused, or make decisions from a not so great place that's not in alignment with ourselves, or that's in alignment with an old self instead of a new self here. So this can create a little bit of an issue that, again, is another indicator of like slowing down, and maybe even I should say confusion with the Mercury, of like starting to get confused now about what to do and how. So what I want to say now, I like to repeat again before I add another layer, is that at this full moon in Capricorn, we're starting to see a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020, more fully, visibly, practically, tangibly be seen and manifest in our lives, which is a very good thing. Opening up suddenly and unexpectedly a lot of new ideas and possibilities about our life and who we could be, that feels more freeing, liberating, exciting, and more authentic to us, that we're more open to receive and are doing a lot of thinking and talking about here, and are coming very quickly. But even though we're in a different and better experience of life now, starting to be, with a lot of new ideas, I think we're just confused about which of these ideas to act on and how to act on them and in which way, and are getting stuck in overthinking and overwork and over planning, or the details about all of this stuff, making us feel frustrated, agitated, and confused. And I think one of the reasons, a big reason why we're not sure which idea to act on or how to act on it, is because we just need a little bit more time to like get used to this new experience and integrate it into our identity, to really feel it as a part of ourselves, and to really be happy and enjoy it, because it's supposed to be a joyful thing and a much better thing for us here as well. Hey, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be back to this full moon in Capricorn, because this full moon in Capricorn is actually, I think, very well aspected, making it a very good one. And in and of itself, right? We talked about the other things going on, but in and of itself, it's a very good one. And that's because the most significant aspect that this full moon in Capricorn is making is going to be a trine over here to both Mars and the South Node, and a sextile over here to the North Node, right? Because if a planet is making a trine to one of the nodes, it's making a sextile to the other node. They're kind of related. Excuse me. So it's making this here as well, which is actually a very, very good alignment, especially when you consider the sun on the other side making the same alignments in the opposite way. A trine to the North Node and a sextile over here to the South Node, which I believe is called like a mystic rectangle here that we've got with this full moon. But either way, it's a good thing that I like a lot here. Why do I like it? Well, I like it because you've got a trine and a sextile, to me, are good aspects here. when it comes to the nodal axis, way better than squares to the nodes here. They indicate some sort of flowing energy, where in this case, the moon, which is making these aspects in Capricorn, gets along really well with the south node in Virgo, which is going to help us in turn move towards the north node in Pisces, which is really where we need to be going, since the north node is a lot about our purpose and destiny at this time. So this is something that's actually really helping us to overcome the challenges that we already talked about, that we already discussed, and to work through it more easily. What is helping us here? Well, remember, let's go back to what we discussed about Capricorn earlier in this video. Hey, Capricorn is a lot about structure. It's a lot about boundaries here to kind of, I don't know if I want to say contain things, but to kind of get things going on a better track and a better direction here. It's also too about making decisions with the Saturn energy of Capricorn and with the opposition of the full moon here. Not only that, but also to remember, Capricorn is a slower sign, being Earth also correlated to Saturn here. So what is this here? This is about us here realizing, look, I'm a little confused. I got a lot of ideas. I got a new experience. I'm a little confused what idea to pursue. And this is us realizing, because remember, full moons can also bring insights, realizing that, you know what, maybe we need to take it slow. Maybe we need to take it slow here when it comes to these new ideas and what we want to do, and not push ourselves and not rush ourselves if we're not ready. Maybe we need to take it slow when it comes to these new ideas, and instead spend the time putting better structures and better boundaries in place of this new experience, right? Because and of working with the new experience before embarking on the new. Because another thought here, Capricorn, I didn't say this earlier, but being a sign of tradition also has to do with the past. So this is an energy of the full moon of saying, before I go 990 on these hundreds of new exciting ideas that all of a sudden have come to me in this new and better experience, let me slow down, let me focus on what is either happening now or has happened in the recent past, and solidifying that, putting boundaries and structures in place to make that super solid first here that's going on. Okay. Instead of diving right in, instead of going crazy, instead of all of that. Why? And that being very good. Maybe I should say that. And that being very good and very helpful to what with the North Node in Pisces. Put us at ease, Pisces. Help us feel more calm, Pisces. Help us feel more restful here, and help us connect more with our intuition, Pisces, and feel more trusting of God, of universe, of all of that here as well. That's going on too. So it's going to help us in that regard. Now, why is another thought? Why is that going to help us? Slowing down, putting structures and boundaries in place. Why is that going to help us? And not only why is that going to help us, but also a factor about the slowness here. Why do we have to be slow in order to do it? Because if you've been listening to me and some of my other horoscopes that I've done, the goal is really to speed up. The goal of the past few years, especially last year and this year, has to eventually reach a really fast clip, fast pace in our lives, or we're doing stuff and it's happening and all of that. So why are we again having to go slower to put structures in place? Well, a few things I want to note about that. This slowness is not forever, right? A full moon, even though there are so many good things about this full moon, is not really that significant of an alignment, okay? In order to get something more long lasting, you're really gonna need like a slower moving planet doing something. So this isn't being slow forever. This isn't being slow for years. This isn't being slow for months. This is like be slow for a few weeks, especially while Mercury is going retrograde. This is not a long slowness, this is a short slowness. Not only do I wanna note that here, but I also want to note as well that structures and boundaries help you to do things more efficiently, right? They help you to do things more effectively, and they help you to do things faster once you put them in place, right? If you've got a structure for something, if you've got a system, you no longer have to obsess about every little detail and every little thought and how is this going to happen, in what way, and it's going to take forever. No, you've got a system for it. Oh, I need to do this. Okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, done. It's the systems and the structures that are going to help you eventually go faster. So there's a need to slow down just for a few weeks while Mercury's retrograde, while the energy of this is peaking. Slow down to put the structures and boundaries in place, because once you slow down to put the structures and boundaries in place the next few weeks, you're then going to be able to speed up. You got to slow down to speed up and to start to go fast in a more consistent and enduring way. Because if we don't put the structures and boundaries in place here now, and we just go willy-nilly into these new ideas here that's happening, we're going to run into issues later on and not be able to go as fast as we might like. We need these first here that's going on, and to lock in this experience so that it doesn't we don't fall out of it later, and so that it's more secure. Not only that, but one other thought here I'll give you, since the moon and the full moon, we've got the moon and the sun here, and they're such well balanced between this rectangle that's going on here. I also want to note as well, another thing that I think is happening too, is that I think we're also having an easier time, not only of putting structures and boundaries in place here, but also too of balancing those structures and boundaries with emotion, with the Cancer, right? The sun's in Cancer about our emotion and with what may help us there. And that's important because if you've been watching my horoscopes for a while, I haven't talked too much about it in this horoscope in particular, but if you've been watching my horoscopes for a while, what I've mentioned is that the big problem with the past 35 years, or the big problem with the past few years about our life that we didn't like, is that we were ignoring our emotions here. We thought that emotions made us weak or babies or sad or were, cringe or whatever. We were ignoring our emotions, and instead we were focusing more on status, on success, on what other people wanted us to do, and on what we thought would make us look better or get more money or things like that, especially with Pluto having been in Capricorn sign for so long prior to this. And Capricorn can be the sign of status and success, right? And now that Pluto's out of there and we've got Jupiter in its opposite sign, okay, here, this is bringing a healthier balance. We're finally able to balance better what our emotions need and our emotions are telling us, so that we're not ignoring them, with the structures in place that are going to help protect our emotions and work with them better instead of stifle them, right? So that's another important thing that's happening here. Yes, boundaries and structures, but that work with our emotions instead of at the expense of them, which is something we have not done in a very long time. Our boundaries and structures for many years prior to this ran over our emotions, ignored our emotions. Nope, now we're getting a better balance, because the whole goal of Pluto and Capricorn was never to not have boundaries and structures. Like that's a part of life. We need those in life. It's to have them in a better balance here, so that we can complete that Capricorn lesson and move on now into the Aquarius issues, with the Pluto and Aquarius, that we'll talk about more and more, of course, as time goes on here, especially after this full moon. Okay, so that's what I want to say there. I also want to note as well, I do think that there's something that will happen more naturally surrounding this. It may be a little frustrating at first with the South Node and all of that. And the moon technically doesn't like to be in Capricorn, so it may be a little frustrating at first, but I do think there's going to be more of a natural instinct here to slow down and to structure this here. But if you don't get that, or if that doesn't happen, then the last thought I'll leave you with here is to use that as advice, And when you use it as advice, that means to consciously choose here to slow down on these new ideas and these new experiences and these new things, to slow down on going 990 on those here, and to instead focus on where you currently are and some things that have happened in the recent past, and on just solidifying that and making sure that's good and that's right and that's becoming more seen and that's going in the best way here, because that's going to get you to where you need to go better later here. That's happening. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat all of that one last time without the astrological jargon, so you can get a better idea of what I think is going on here. So let me do that now. What I think is going on here at this full moon in Capricorn is that we are finally stepping into, thank goodness, a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to for quite some time, especially since 2020, and seeing it more publicly, tangibly, and visibly seen. Okay, not only that, but this new experience is also opening up suddenly and unexpectedly to us a lot of new ideas about our life and who we could be and what we could do next that feel more exciting, more lighthearted, more freeing, and more authentic to us, that we're more open to receive, that feel good, and that are coming really, really quickly here and really intensely. But even though we're starting to see a new and better experience manifest, and there's a lot of wonderful, new, exciting ideas coming unexpectedly, I think we're a little overwhelmed by this new experience, by all these ideas here. Maybe are getting a little too in the head when it comes to them, and are starting to get really confused now about which idea to pursue and in what way, and are getting too detailed about these ideas and how to do them here. That's going on. That's making us feel stuck. unable to really move forward or figure out how, and confused and frustrated, maybe even a little angry because of this, even though we're really in a good spot here. That's hard. And I think a big reason why we're kind of confused about these ideas and which ones to act on here and how to act on them is because this place that we're in now is so different. It feels foreign. It doesn't feel like us. So we need time to get used to it. And because we're maybe still a little scared about this new experience and need to learn to have more fun with it and to truly enjoy it. And because that's happening where we're feeling stuck and not really able to act on these new ideas and to enjoy them and to identify them, I think a part of us is naturally going to feel called to kind of slow down and to hold off acting on these new ideas right away, and to not only slow down and hold off on acting on these new ideas, but to instead spend our time working with either where we currently are or with things that have happened in the recent past, and to better structure and secure and stabilize that to make it more solid and more efficient, because structuring this new experience and making it more solid is going to help us identify with it, is going to help us get used to it, and is going to help us in the future to act on these ideas that we want to pursue now in a way that's going to be much better, much for us, and actually happen much quicker here. And not only that, but we're also finally figuring out here as well how to put boundaries and structures in place in our life to manage this new experience that honors our emotions and works with our emotions instead of against them, which I think is good. Yeah, and going to help us to work with things better in the future as time moves on. And I do think that this might happen naturally as we move through the energy, maybe towards the end of the energy. But if it's not happening naturally, then that is the advice. The advice is to consciously choose to hold off on any new, crazy, unexpected ideas that have recently come up about things you can do next. And instead to focus on solidifying where you currently are and putting better structures and boundaries in place, because that's going to give you the clarity eventually later that you need about these ideas, and more of the speed on those. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, I'm now going to move on. What I typically like to do next in this video is to just say a few more things about this energy in my own words. Well, everything's in my own words, but in a different way, in a more conversational way here, because sometimes I think that can help here. What do I want to say? I do think I actually was quite efficient in this horoscope and said a lot of the things that I really already wanted to say. But where do I want to start? Sure, maybe we'll start here with the Capricorn, okay? Pluto's been in Capricorn, was in Capricorn for a while, from 2008 to last year, the end of last year, okay? Whenever Pluto's in a sign, I don't particularly consider that a good thing or an easy thing, I should say. To me, Pluto is manifests the most challengingly out of any planet. So that to me was particularly difficult. From 2008 to about last year was the Capricorn themes, okay? And what we were really learning about that. And this full moon in Capricorn marks the end of that Pluto and Capricorn challenge. So maybe we need to get clear on that. It marks the end on that because I think this is, well, it's the first full moon in Capricorn, I think, since Pluto officially left signs, if I remember correctly, from Capricorn into Aquarius, and full moons do signify endings in some sort of way. So this to me is officially going to mark the ending of the Pluto and Capricorn, so that I'll start talking to you more about Pluto and Aquarius and what that means here. But in order to do the ending, let me finish explaining what the Pluto and Capricorn here was. When Pluto's in a sign, to me, it takes that sign and it brings it to a really extreme, intense, and unhealthy degree, right? And anything done to an extreme is unhealthy, right? The sign itself is not unhealthy, okay? But when done to an extreme, it then gets unhealthy. And Pluto brings it to the extreme once it gets in that sign. So Capricorn in general is about our career, is about status, is about success, sometimes can be about money and practical matters and being serious about our lives. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. Okay. We need to make money, a career, we need a career, career is an important part of just having a full human experience. And and status isn't inherently bad either. Sometimes we can use our status for good things here as well. So that's not inherently bad. But when Pluto entered Capricorn from 2008 till I believe the end of last year, it started to distort the Capricorn energy to make that more of a challenge and to make it to make us too focused on career, too focused on status, too focused on success, too focused on money here. Not in a healthy way. That's good and balanced, but too much. And too much usually at the expense of the opposite sign, which in this case is Cancer. Cancer is about our emotions. It's about the weak and vulnerable parts of ourselves or the soft part of ourselves here and what's going on inside. It's about personal matters and home and family. It's about our emotions and working out some stuff within ourselves and feeling more grounded here, maybe even our own private lives as well. Cancer has to do with. So for the past while Pluto was in Capricorn from about 2008, I believe, to last year, we may have been seeking career, status, money, success, because that's just a normal part of life, but it started to get too much. We started to focus too much on career, status, and success at the expense of our emotions, our private life, our personal life, what we were really feeling here, and which distorted the energy, and which got us into a lot of situations that didn't really align with us, right? Because when you ignore your emotions and you're making decisions that are ignoring your emotions, you're not really making the right decisions, or you're not making decisions that honor the full you. Okay. You're making decisions that sure maybe are logical or practical, Capricorn, or are maybe going to get you the respect and the success, but are hollow. They're empty, right? Because Cancer is what brings that emotional depth and meaning to life here. So they're hollow and empty. And I think that's what's gone on for a long time that led us in 2020 when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction around the same degree in this sign to not like our lives anymore, because we had made a whole bunch of decisions, not based on what was true for us as humans, emotionally, individually, and personally, but for what would get us status, what would get us success, what would get us money, what would move us up. And we realized that had gotten us into a lot of things we didn't like. We got into relationships, not because we actually resonated with them on an emotional level, but maybe because they're who we thought we should be with, or who would give us the best status, or maybe they had money, or maybe they, had the career we wanted, or would help us get the career we wanted or make the money we wanted, right? Were the jobs. We got into the wrong career, the wrong jobs here. Instead of getting into a career or a job that was really emotionally meaningful to us, we got into a career or job just because it's going to make money or be the easiest to make money, or it's what everyone else, the career that looks good on paper, that everyone else is going to be in awe when they realize we do it, or we bought the homes or the houses here, not that we really wanted to buy, not that we really liked, but the houses that we thought everyone else would like, the big house with all these rooms and these places, instead of the small, crazy fixer-upper that actually was cooler, that actually we'd like better. It's like that we started to make decisions that were not in accordance with what we were really feeling. Or maybe this was health related. Maybe we, and this might fit in a weird way, but maybe we had some health issues, and instead of listening to our own emotions and our own intuition about our health issues, maybe we started to listen to doctors, because the doctors should know, because they have status, the doctors have status, and the doctors are successful, and the doctors are going to help us. Maybe we started to kind of outsource some of our power as well too, because not only can Capricorn indicate status and success, but because it has to do with being publicly seen, it can also indicate external validation. So we might have also started to look to external sources to validate us as well, right? And that's what got us into a lot of issues the past few years, and in 2020 we needed to get out of. Well, as of this full moon in Capricorn, of which this video is for, that's ending, that's over, we're fixing that, okay? Other challenges will occur in a different way with the Pluto now in Aquarius, but that specific challenge of the focusing too much on status, success, money, and external validation at the expense of our own self is now ending, okay? We are ending that, okay? What does it look like when we end that? Okay, because full moons indicate endings in Capricorn, this sign. Well, this full moon is saying no more money, status, success at the expense of my emotions, at the expense of who I really am, at the expense of who I'm really feeling. No more of that. None of that. Not no status, success, career at all. Just that if I do have a career, money, status, and success, it has to honor my emotions and be a true part of it here in order to bring that into it as well. So it's a totally redoing, reimagining of what status and success and career in our life direction in life actually looks like, to be one that works with our emotion, our heart, instead of against it. Okay, that to me is happening here at this time. What might that look like? Maybe now I'll give some examples here for some of you at this time. Well, what this might manifest as at this full moon in Capricorn could be quite literal, because Capricorn has to do with your job and career. So for some of you, this could literally be a career change that you could all of a sudden start to get ideas about here at this full moon in Capricorn, where you could realize, oh, the career I've had for a very long time, it actually doesn't resonate with me anymore. Maybe I never liked it. Now I need a different career, and that different career being kind of a crazier one, like a crazier one that's like more in tune with your emotions and hits you more in the heart. So it could be something like that, leaving a traditional career to go to more of like a silly one, or no, silly is not the word, to go to more of like a heart-based one. Maybe I'll say it that way instead, which is what needs to happen here at this time. Or it could be leaving just an old career behind to do another passion. Like you had a career, it was your passion then, now it's not. You're moving into another career that's more passionate here for you. And you getting a lot of insights about that and what you could do, or for some of you starting to make that happen. This could also apply to a job search. I know a lot of you have posted mentioning that you've been searching for a job and that's been hard. Well, maybe what could happen at this full moon in Capricorn is that you realize you've been searching for the wrong jobs, that the jobs you've been searching for this whole time, are actually the old job that you thought you should do in order to make money, make ends meet. I really got to make ends meet, or to get the status and success, but that it's not actually right for you, and that now you need to search for other jobs instead that are actually going to be a much better fit for you and that you're going to like much better here too. So it could bring something of that sort here. Not only that, but this could also indicate like work on multiple different layers. To me, Pluto affects every part of the chart and every part of your life. It's not just one part. So this could also be relationship related. Maybe some of you were in a relationship that what you was mostly, who knows, for money, for convenience, because you thought they were attractive, or the type of person you should be with, or something of that sort. Well, what could happen around this full moon, maybe even prior to this, is that you realize, that person's not really meant for me. I need a different type of person to be in a relationship, and that person is very different from the kind that you were with here. That's going on as well. So it could indicate some of that, or maybe even you meeting that, starting to meet different types of relationships that are more in alignment with you as well. Because maybe I should note, the ending really should have already happened. The ending should have happened in 2020. The ending of the relationship, the ending of the career should have already happened. So maybe this full moon in Capricorn is not so much about the ending. It's about you finally, right? Because something's also becoming more visibly seen. It's about you finally realizing, this is the career I need to do instead, and going more towards that. This is the job I need to start looking for instead, going more towards that. This is the type of relationship I need instead, going more towards that, or meeting a different type of person, right? Or getting that job. It's more there because we're further along in the story now. Okay, if not that, maybe this is a home situation. Maybe some of you in the past have lived in homes that maybe were big and beautiful, but maybe you didn't really like. And so another thing that could be happening now at this full moon in Capricorn is you're realizing, I need a different home, and you're starting the home search, or you're finding a home that you might like and honing in more on that. Again, this could also be a health issue. Maybe the past few years, you've been focused so much on what the doctors have said about your health, and maybe the doctors have been wrong, or things like that. And you've been trying to fix or end your relationships with doctors. Well, what could happen at this full moon in Capricorn is that you could finally start to get insights here about your health and what you need to fix it by listening to your own intuition, and that also starting to resolve itself as well. So, and in a way that, right, is more in touch with your emotions and your intuition. So I think those are the situations that I would see start to happen here. Okay. Not necessarily the ending. I should say that the ending has already occurred, but it's the realization of the new now. The realization of this is the new career that's more in alignment with me. This is the new job I either need to get or need to look for. This is the new type of person I need to be in. This is within a relationship. This is a different type of relationship that's coming into my awareness. This is a different type of home. It's a different type of health situation. This full moon in Capricorn is about aligning more with that new experience finally. Okay, not only do I want to note that this full moon in Capricorn is about us aligning with the new experience finally, that's more in alignment with our emotions, but it's about these things being more long lasting and being more of the thing, more of the right thing. I think for the past few years, we've tried a lot of things in our life to try to get into a new experience that have failed. We've tried a lot of things that have failed. Or it didn't fail. We just tried a lot of things that didn't work. Okay. Well, this is the right thing. Whatever realization you're starting to come to and start to see manifest in your life of something new and different. And I think this is new and different, not something from the past. So let's keep this in mind. This is something new and different, not a past thing returning, which sometimes Mercury retrograde can do. Here, I think that we are, I think that this is a new thing. I think it's us starting to align with it. And I think it's a new thing becoming more being more of the thing that's going to work, the real thing that's finally going to get you into a better place and a more long-lasting thing, especially because Capricorn and Cancer are long-lasting. They are long-lasting things. They don't, being about structures, foundations, grounding here as well. So this is more of the real thing here that is starting to come together here at this time. Okay. What else do I want to note here about that? Finally, the realization of the new thing that we've been trying to get to for quite some time and what that is that's actually going to work long term. Okay. The next thing I want to note is it's a realization. There is a tangible factor to this. There is something tangible about it. Not only is it a realization of what the new thing is, I think there's also a physical manifestation of it as well, which could be a physical manifestation of the new job actually manifesting, a physical manifestation of a new career actually manifesting, a physical manifestation of the health actually getting better, a physical manifestation of a new partner or a new type of relationship or doing relationships in a different way. I do think that there is also not only a realization of the new, but a physical manifestation of it here as well. But on the physical manifestation part, I also want to note, I think it's still in its early stages because I know some of you are going to be like, what if I'm not seeing anything new manifest in my life? And my thought to you is there is something manifesting here. I do think you're going to be able to more visibly see it than we ever have in the past 5 years, what this new thing is. But I think there's still something about it that might still look a little formative. Like a little newborn, might still look a little formative and still a little small. So so keep that in mind. That's not a bad thing. That's how all good things start. They start small and they get bigger. You know what I mean? So it's not a bad thing. Just keep in mind here, you got to adjust your expectations here about what it might look like. So keep that in mind, right? That if this full moon in Capricorn brings a new job or a new career or a new relationship or new something or other, it's not going to be big, fully made, fully done, fully baked. It's going to be like a new thing, right? And new things are formative, right? Like if this is a new job, there's like a hesitancy of like, am I going to like it? Am I going to not? If this is a new health situation, it's like, is it going to work? Is it going to not? I think it is. It's little by little, it's something like that. This is a new relationship with a new type of person. Is it going to work? I don't know. We just met, right? It's like we have to go through the steps of dating before things get bigger, So there's a lot of that here too. And to keep that in mind, just because I'm saying that all of a sudden now things are being more permanently seen or whatever, big seen in a more long lasting way, more visibly seen. Sorry, just because I'm saying things are going to be more visibly seen in a more enduring and long-lasting way doesn't mean hugely seen. Not yet. Eventually, it's just the beginning processes here, especially because this full moon in Capricorn is really more about ending the old Pluto cycle, right? We're probably going to need the next new moon in Capricorn like 6 months from now before we start to see it more and more. So, so manage your expectations and don't feel bad if this new thing still feels a little small yet here, you're fine. It's going to get bigger as more time goes on. So I also want to note that as well here. Now, even though this is going on, right, there is some confusion happening, right? Well, maybe I should say this. There is a sense of liberation, right? This is exciting. This is a big moment, especially with Uranus. This is exciting. This is a big moment. And I think there are a lot of feelings of freedom and flexibility and inspiration, right? It's a big moment that feels small, right? But sorry, one other thought came to me. Not all big moments feel and look big. Some big moments feel and look small. Okay, so, and this is again, where I feel like language is just so limiting. The human language is like, this is a big moment, but don't equate big with it actually looking big. Sometimes big things happen in the soul and happen in other ways. So I'll use the word significant instead of big. Okay, this is a very significant moment. Okay, breaking a long cycle from 2008 here that I like. It does look very exciting too, opening up lots of new ideas as well with the Uranus. So to hone in on that component for a minute, what this means is that some of you now, to kind of tie it with my examples, are getting the realization finally at this full moon in Capricorn and a little bit of a physical manifestation of something new. The new job or the new career or the new relationship or a glimpse of a new home, right? You're starting to see that manifest here. It's also opening up a whole bunch of other ideas with it of like what could come next. So it's like, if I got this new job, then I could do this and I could do that and I could meet this and I could be here, it would be easier for me to get to work, or I could work from home, or I'd start to connect with these different coworkers and I'd get in this direction and then I could do this next with my career and I could do this next with my job, right? Or if it's a new relationship, then there might also be a whole bunch of ideas kind of coming off of that as well, of like, oh, now this is say a new relationship. Well, now we've got this relationship going. Well, now that I've got this new relationship, I can meet this different type of friends, or maybe I can have this different experience, down the road. Maybe I'll get married. Maybe I'll have kids. Maybe I don't want to get married. Maybe that's fine. You start to have all of these ideas now about things that can happen in the future, or maybe it's about the home situation. You start to, at this full moon, get a realization about your home, what you might want to do there, or maybe start to find a new home. And then all of a sudden you may get tons of exciting ideas after that. Well, I can fix this home up and I can do this with the home and I can make this happen and I can live here and these things will be better for me, right? It can open up a whole bunch of different ideas. Or if it's the health, starting to get a new remedy now for the health that's starting to slowly work. Oh, well, if my health is getting better, I can do this, I can do that, I can go here, I can make that happen, right? There's tons of ideas that are opening up as well. So I think that's another component to mention about this full moon in Capricorn. There's the end of the Pluto story, which is bringing a new realization with a small new physical manifestation of that realization to get you into a new experience of life that has structure, that's more in touch with your emotions. And then there's another thing, which is all the ideas stemming from those ideas after that. All the ideas stemming from that core idea, that core thing, a realization that's happening there that might come with it. Okay, the next thing I want to note now is that when it comes to these other things that are stemming from it, not the core idea, okay, I think the core idea is fine, but when it comes to the other things, other smaller ideas stemming from the core ideas, like I'm seeing like a tree in my head, like a big thing, and then, or like a graph, all these other ideas coming off of it here. When it comes to these other ideas, those are the ones you need to hold off on. Okay, those ideas are the ones that we're not ready for yet. Okay, not because they're not good, not because they're not great, not because you won't be able to enact those. I think you will be able to enact many of those down the future in very beautiful ways. So it's not don't enact them because they're never going to happen and you can't do it. You can do it. You will do it. Okay, it's don't enact those ideas because they're a little too far ahead, right? They're a little too far ahead of where we're at. Right? It's like, you're just getting into a relationship. Let's not think about all that down the line. You're just getting the career. Okay. Stop thinking about all this other stuff. Like, let's work out some of these things here. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have the home yet, like, let's come back a little bit here. So is because those ideas, we need to hold off on those ideas because they're a little too far ahead from where we're really at, okay? Not only do we need to hold off on those ideas because they're a little too far from where we're at, but because we haven't really adjusted to this different experience yet, and really adapted to it and identified with it and had fun with it, and there's no need to rush the process, right? It's all good. We're going into a better experience. You got to enjoy it, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, enjoy every bit of it, especially now that it's starting to get better. So, we've got a lot of new ideas. The core idea, work on. The new ideas, hold off because they're a little too far ahead and because we haven't fully identified with this new experience yet and aren't fully enjoying it. And we need to enjoy it here. That's happening as well, right? And enjoying our experience is going to help us feel more a part of it and make better decisions. Because again, we're making better decisions when our heart is in it, because this time is about honoring our emotions, not ignoring them, okay, and wishing them away. So I think that's the thought that I want to say there, because maybe some of you are confused. You're like, I've got new things happening, but you're telling me to hold off on them. Which idea do I do and which one do I hold off on? And it's like, well, the core idea about something new, you can kind of continue on here, but the 5-6 steps down the road about what's going to happen with that you might want to hold off on. Okay. Because you're not ready for that. It's too far ahead. We got to adapt to where we are. We got to have fun with where we are, which we're not doing. Okay. Another thing as well, too, is that we have to solidify where we're at as well with the Capricorn experience too. You know, another reason why we don't want to move forward 990 on these new ideas is because we need to solidify where we're at and make it stronger and give it a really good foundation from which to grow, you know, to make sure that the new job or the new career or whatever is being nurtured is strong here and has everything it needs in order to properly manifest later. Why is that important? Well, if we don't build the structures for this new experience, then it's going to have a weak foundation. And when something has a weak foundation, the first time hardship comes, it knocks it over, you know? So another reason, and if we skip this foundational step of structuring it and just move forward on all these other ideas, we're not going to build the necessary foundation. So that's another reason here why we need to not move forward 990 and all these new ideas quite yet, is because they're a little too far ahead. We haven't fully stabilized where we are yet to make it really strong and to last the test of time. And if we move forward on these new ideas without structuring this new experience, it's going to be weak and it may fall apart later on. You know, the minute one small thing happens that's going on. So we need to take the time to build the structure and also to identify with this new experience and to be happy with it as well. Okay. What else do I want to say here about it? Sure, maybe that'll feel a little frustrating at first. I think we'll come around to it. But maybe for some of you, it might feel a little frustrating at first of like, great, I have to slow down and put some structure in place and all of that. But this is a blessing. This is not a bad thing. This is a blessing because the structure is what's going to make this even more seen and this even more real, this thing that's going on, and not make it more, and not just make it more seen and more real, but it's going to make it easier down the line and faster. You know, we keep talking about things being fast. I used to keep talking about things being faster, especially last year and a little bit in my last video 2 weeks ago. Things are meant to be fast. They're not meant to be slow, but it's taking us time to get there. And that's because and it's taken us time to get there. But before you can go fast, you have to go slow, right? You have to learn how to crawl before you can learn how to walk. You got to learn how to walk before you can run, you know, things of that sort. And things are meant to speed up and move fast. But before they can speed up and move fast, we need to have some solid ground here that may take us a minute to do. So the structure now may feel slower and may feel a little frustrating for that reason, but it's going to help us go fast after this is done, which is really not too far from now, maybe just a few weeks here. And think about literally the act of going fast, the act of running. Try running on quicksand. Try running on a beach, right? That's soft. It's soft. It's hard. When you are running, you probably want something like a little more solid. You probably want concrete, although that might be a little hard in the knees. Maybe you want grass. You know, it's harder to run fast on soft ground. You need something a little more solid if you want to go fast. So it may feel frustrating now to kind of hold off on some of these ideas that you want to go forward on just to solidify where you are, but it's this solidifying where you are that's going to bring the speed later on, right? You kind of have to slow down to go fast. It's kind of one of those situations here, which really, again, isn't that long. It's just a few weeks for the Mercury retrograde, you know, maybe like 3 to 6 weeks. Slow down here before we can maybe speed up here a little bit more after that point, okay? Okay. right? Because when you've got the structure, you've got and everything could go more effectively and efficiently. Anything else? Another thing too about the slowness while we're at it is to get the better balance between structure and emotion as well. This is not something we're used to doing. We're used to having too much structure in our lives and too much focus on that. And so I think another reason why we kind of need to take our time as well is to make sure we're getting the balance right, because sometimes when we're going fast, we miss things, right? We're going so fast, we don't think about things here. So sometimes we also need to slow down here to make sure that we're not forgetting things and that we're doing things in the proper way for the situation here, especially when there's so much muscle memory based on the past. I think so much of our muscle memory is like, gotta just do structure at the expense of emotion. So another reason why we need to slow down is to make sure that the things that we're doing here are truly balancing structure and emotion in a healthy way, and that we're not falling back into that old pattern of ignoring the emotion here as well. Okay. Anything else that I want to note? I think that's all that's really coming to me. Okay. With these ideas, maybe just another random thought, these new ideas that I'm telling you to hold off on, right? The core idea, keep and structure that. Keep, structure that, make that more solid. All the little ideas off of that, hold off on here. Another thought I want to say here is don't be frustrated about holding off on the old ideas. Holding off on the new ideas. Use these new ideas to inspire you emotionally. So even if we're not able to do the new ideas right now for the future and move forward on those, don't see that as a bad thing of like, oh, I can't do all these things I want to do. See it as a good thing, because now you have a vision and a goal that can inspire you, right? And if you have the starting point of where we currently are now, which I think now is a huge beginning, huge is a weird word. It's a significant beginning that may still look a little small, right? Okay. This is a significant beginning. If we've got a significant beginning happening with a lot of ideas about the future, right? The beginning and the future, then the rest in between is going to be easier to figure out. Do you see? So solidify the beginning and let these ideas about the future excite you. Don't act on them yet, but let them excite you. Because once you've solidified the beginning and once you've gotten sufficiently excited about the future, all the little details in between going to happen easy, going to easily come together, probably around the solar eclipse in Virgo, during Virgo season this year. Okay, just a few months from now. Here. So keep that in mind as well. This is not about moving 990 on your ideas. It's about solidifying the present away from the past and getting the vision for the future, so that a few months from now, 3 months or so, a lot of details are going to start to come into place for you to figure out what to do and how to do it there too. Okay. Anything else I want to note? Do I want to make a note about like world events here? Because I have in a few of the videos in the past, I like this energy. I think this is a new beginning that's going to be very significant, very long lasting to get you into a better experience. I think this is a more permanent line being drawn in the sand now, finally to get us into that different experience here. But I do want to note that sometimes when you get such a strong energy, of which this is, especially after all the solar moving planets have changed, a lot of the solar moving planets have changed signs this year. When you get such a big line drawn in the sand here, it really becomes clear who is on board with the energy and who has been learning the lessons from the past 5 years, which I think have been challenging for a lot of people, and who have not, and who are stuck in the past. And I think a lot of these lessons are the Pluto and Capricorn lessons. It's going to become more clear who really has been understanding what's going on here, who's really been understanding that the ignoring of the emotions has been the whole problem all along, and the ignoring of the weak and vulnerable parts of ourselves has been the problem all along, and who is oblivious to that, who still thinks that status, money, success is the way forward. It's going to become increasingly clear about that, because now we're finally turning a corner. And not only is it going to become increasingly clear about that because now we're finally turning a corner, but the new with the people who are ready to grow is going to start to take over, and is going to start to have more, this is not the right word, but they're going to start to have more success and more control. It may not happen overnight, but they're going to start to have more success and more control, because that's winning. So the past 5 years, the people stuck in the past may have had more control, right? Because we were working some things out. The people who are all about status, money, success, all of that. But now that's changing. Do you see who The tides are changing. Who is in power is changing, especially Capricorn has to do with power. Who's in power is changing. Who is in control is changing, to be away from people who are looking for status and success and more for people who are honoring their emotions, their intuition, their true self, what's kind of authentic and true to them here too. So it can indicate a change here and that. Not only does that happen a lot of times when you get such a strong split in the energy here of this and the ending of one cycle and the beginning of another, but Uranus is also in Gemini now too. Gemini is about the twins, two things. And Uranus has to do with revolution, but a lot of times revolution is a war, right? A revolution is a lot of times a war. And I think that's because, Uranus correlates to Aquarius, which has to do with, liberating ourselves from things that are keeping you stuck. Well, how do you liberate yourselves from things that are keeping you stuck? You know what I mean? You don't just say, okay, I'm done now. A lot of times it's an issue. And Uranus also is exalted in Scorpio, which to me is a sign of war. And so there's another thought there that even though I like this energy, the new is winning out, we're growing and evolving finally as humanity in a different way. It's going to make it more painfully obvious and clear who is not growing in that way, because they're going to be a split, two sections that now may create a conflict here that might need to be resolved. Okay. And as to where the past 5 years, the people on the Pluto and Capricorn, the more challenging side, were in charge. Now that's going to change. People who are more on the Cancer side, more honoring of our emotions, are going to take charge. Okay, but which is a good thing, but could feel a bit tumultuous, especially because Uranus and Gemini correlates historically to a lot of wars, in history, right? Like, just thinking from a historical perspective, if we don't even if we forget the symbolism of Uranus and Gemini, Uranus was in Gemini at the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War there at the founding of the United States. So was Pluto around this spot here as well. Uranus was also in Gemini the Civil War, the American Civil War. Uranus was also in Gemini the 1940s, World War II. World War II, the North Node was also in Pisces, so keep that in mind as well. I think the North Node was also in Pisces in World War I here as well. Sometimes Virgo can indicate the military, servicemen, things of that, service people, things of that sort. So there's a lot of that. Pluto in Aquarius was also the Revolutionary War, the French Revolution. Here, I think Saturn in Aries was also another war instead, but there's a lot of warlike energy going on. This to me, a lot of this is common here that astrologers know this. This is not like a surprising thing that all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Uranus is in war. It's like, no, this is a thing a lot of astrologers have seen coming for many, many years. Here, there's a lot of historical symbols of war with these alignments here that's going on. And it's not because we're going backwards. It's because we are going forward. There's no doubt about it. We are going into a new experience where we honor our emotions, where emotions are seen as valuable and honored, even if you don't have status or success or money, and where we honor those parts of ourselves here, and everyone else has to now get in line, because we're moving on. We're evolving as a species. It's time to go. And where we got to figure out how to get on the same page. And Uranus and Gemini too can kind of be like that. Gemini is like, sure, we're two sides, but we got to figure out how to figure this out, how to get along here, or how to adjust our mindset to work things out. So keep that in mind here too. And that if you see some challenging things going on a world scale, then that can be why. The Uranus and Gemini does seem to affect the United States more than other countries, because that was the Civil War and the American Revolution that happened. But also the World War II. World War II was during this alignment as well. So the world tends to get involved as well during that alignment. Okay, anything else that I want to say? All right, and sometimes, sometimes conflict we want to minimize, and sometimes conflict is a necessary part of growth. Maybe that's another thought here too, because maybe there are some of you who are like, well, I don't want war. Well, who wants war? No one does really. But sometimes those are things we're learning, especially with Saturn and Aries. I also consider Aries to be fairly warlike as well. And the ancient astrologers did with the Greek and Roman myths considered Aries to be the god of war here. And so we've got Saturn there too. And sometimes these are things we're learning. And what are we learning? To stand up for ourselves, to fight for what we believe in, to fight for who we are. These are lessons people have to learn sometimes, there are some lessons that we have to learn where it's saying, don't just give everyone else whatever they want. Don't just be a doormat. Don't just, stand up for your beliefs and, all of that, and do what's important. So keep that in mind here too, that this could indicate war. Obviously, no one wants war, but there, I think, is a reason why it's happening, to give you a different perspective, and that even from war, there's things to learn, even if we don't want it or like it here, about how things work, or about how to evolve. And I think a lot of times too, some of our greatest evolution comes from challenge. I like to think that evolution happens easily and naturally, that we just naturally all of a sudden decide to change our mind and do things different. And it's beautiful. But a lot of times we as humans just do not change until we get uncomfortable, until we're uncomfortable enough and have to change here. And I think that's just, a fact of human life, is that a lot of us do not change until we absolutely have to. And I think that this is one of those moments, This is one of those moments where evolution, right, is all right, it's time to change. And now you have to. You didn't necessarily have to the past 5 years. You're still trying to figure things out. Or it's trying to be nice. Spirit's trying to be nice. But now we have to go do it. So change or be forced is the vibe here. Change or be forced here, and not necessarily, and sure, and be forced by other people, warring countries, or be forced by spirit. It's we gotta go. We gotta go now. Here. Anything else that I want to note? Right. And so maybe that's a final thought here too. If some of you aren't feeling like good things or new things are happening in your life, even just a little bit, if some of you are nope, not even just a little bit here, then it might help for you to reflect, are you honoring more of your emotions, or are you just doing what you think that you should be doing here? So for society, for success, for status, and try to adjust from there. Okay, what I want to do next is I am going to pull up your inside degrees. So let me go ahead and do that really quickly here. This full moon is at 18 degrees Capricorn. I like to look at the degree before, of, and after, although I didn't like the one after. So I'm just going to look at before and of right now. These insights degrees were not written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degrees from spirit. But I like them. So let's look at Capricorn 17. It says, initiation is a secretive affair. It calls forth discernment and offers immense awakening. So what that means to me is that there's an initiation happening right now. We're being initiated, I think, into a new, different experience we've been trying to get to since 2020, with an awakening happening. It said it is a narrow path, stern and demanding. So that to me goes off of what we just said. I think now there's something about the energy that's it's time to evolve, either go willingly or be forced. And I think that's where we are. It's it's time to be initiated into a new experience, right? Are you going to do it or not? Stern and demanding. Now is the time. Do it or stay lost, do it or be forced, right? It's this, and there's a very narrow way for it to be done, very specific way for it to be done, which is to honor our emotions. Okay. It says, everything proves illusory. The world becomes an empty egg, yet the guiding ray is so pure. So that's interesting. I mean, what that means to me is that even though I think we are starting to see the new experience more and more, maybe it still feels a bit empty, a little bit of a shell of what's to come here that's going on. That can be hard, but that there isn't a guiding ray within ourselves. And so maybe the biggest proof of whether this new experience is here at this full moon in Capricorn for you is not whether so many things are manifesting in beautiful ways, but is, what does your intuition say? Is there an inner guiding ray that just knows and believes that things are going to get better here as well? Okay. It says, to continue, and if the tests are passed, exquisite self-realization is there, a reminder of what you've forgotten, a vow or promise reinstated. Okay. So what this means is that for those of you who have really spent the past 5 years doing the work to change your approach, to honor more of your emotions instead of focus on status and success, there's something quite exquisite going on here. A lot of realizations. Is as a reminder of what you've forgotten, or some sort of, promise or help or gift or something like that. something that neglected and denied returning in the most startling ways. It says, a fate-like feeling of get it now or get it later, no fruitions in the outer, yet all is bright on the inner. So these last two sentences here, there's a weird thing between it being visibly seen and what. I think we're more visibly seeing these manifestations in a small way that's growing. But again, if you're not, this degree keeps saying, focus on the inner. Do you feel it inside you that something good is going to happen and that some change is coming, and to really focus on that, okay? And the inside degrees don't know that there's a full moon here, and the full moons tend to make things more seen, so I don't know. I'm just getting a weird thing around that. Some of you may definitely see new beginnings taking shape, but if you don't, focus on the inner feeling. Is there an inner feeling that something good is on the way? Also, it says this, the something neglected and denied returning in the most startling ways. I'm not a huge fan of something from the past coming back. I do think that a lot of this is new, something different. You got to do something different situations, different people than what you've had before here. So I don't think that this means like going back to old situations. This to me is more like going back to the core of who you are. It's like the part of yourself that you neglected and denied internally starting to return. Here, that's the way I see it. Not a physical thing returning, but an emotional internal state here. So that's what I get from this degree. We're being initiated into a different experience, which is one in which we're more aligned with our emotions, that is awakening, but it's a little bit of a narrow path, very specific about how we do this, which is to honor our emotions. Here, it may look a little stark still, even though it's coming, or like an empty shell, okay? But it's coming. Trust in your inner feeling and in your intuition here to do it. And because something I think within yourself is going to be restored. Okay. The next degree is this, Capricorn 18, total intensity of inward and outward endeavor, goal-oriented, plans intensive, schematic, premeditated, comprehensive. Okay. So maybe where there's a lot of focus on the plans and the goals here with this new experience. It says elaborately sophisticated at implementing vision and action, aware of your own position, standing above, seeing it all, and magnificent at putting everything together. Okay. This to me speaks of like the structuring part. We got to structure what we're doing and put everything together. It says an old karmic knack coming in handy, a past master in the arts of manifestation, the emperor, astute, adroit, keenly observant, so strategic, clever, and cool that there can be corruption. If distortion sets in, a subtle, insidious suggestion of self-importance and abuse of a power will arise. Superlative consciousness needing advanced handling to stay truth-centered and immune to the false light of power. Okay. I actually think that this speaks to the past of what we're overcoming. We're overcoming this distortion of power and using power for control. We're overcoming that. I think that this inside degree just indicates we're becoming extremely aware of where we have given, of where power has become control or where we have distorted power. So I think that's what I'm getting here from Capricorn 18, a strong awareness now finally setting in of where we're no longer living in alignment with what we need to be living at, and more goal-oriented structures that we're starting to put in place in order to make it strong. So I think that's what I get from those degrees there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull your card really quickly. So let me do that now. Okay. All right. We've got it here. Temperance. Oh, which way to pull it? Temperance reversed. Okay. This is like a lack of balance here, which is interesting because we did talk a little bit about balance being important between the structures that you're putting into place and the emotional world, and structures that honor your emotions here. And we've got... and temperance is also about healing. And we've got the King of Pentacles reversed at the bottom of the deck. What is this saying to me? We have to tip the scales with the temperance being about balance away from, the King of Pentacles to me is very Capricorn, away from all structure, all status, success, things of that. It's time to rebalance our lives away from that. The other thought that I want to give too is that sometimes when we do things in a different way, like right now we're trying to honor our emotions. Sometimes doing something we haven't really done before may feel unbalanced when actually it's the balance, right? Because how do you balance something? You go too much in one direction, you go too much in another, and then you finally meet in the middle. And I think for a very long time, we've been too much in the Pluto and Capricorn direction, structure, status, success. And so what may happen at this full moon in Capricorn is that we may feel at times like we're going too much in the other direction, emotion, feeling, honoring of that, whatever that's saying here. that's going on. And I think the cards are saying, let yourself do that, because even though you may feel like you're going too much in the emotion direction, you're not going too much in the emotion. It just feels like it because it's not what you're used to, right? Compared to what you were doing, it feels too much. Compared to what you need now, it's just the right balance here. Not only is that the thought here, but temperance is about healing. So I think there's also a lot of healing that might need to occur as well within your emotions, and to honor those at this time. And not only healing within your emotions, but maybe there's a lot of healing from the past. Maybe some of you did make bad decisions in the past or things of that sort. And maybe there's also a bit of healing and forgiveness here as well. Maybe some of you need to forgive yourself for decisions and choices that you made prior to this point here, so that you can let yourself start again and embrace what is coming. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope that you have a good full moon in Capricorn, and I'll talk to you 2 weeks on the next video at that new moon in the sign of Leo.